king between two worlds. There are some people who live two lives. Not because they're hiding secrets, not because they're running away, but because when they close their eyes, a second world opens its gates. And for one man named Elliot Grayson, that second world didn't just feel real, it was real. Or at least, it felt real enough to make waking up feel like losing something. Elliot was 34 years old. He lived in a modest apartment with beige carpet and a refrigerator that hummed louder than it should. He worked a perfectly ordinary job, a 9-to-5 office position at a company that printed labels, not books, not art, not music, labels. His days were measured in emails, deadlines, and the occasional awkward small talk near the coffee machine. "Morning," someone would say. "Morning," Elliot would answer. Then he would sit down at his desk and watch the hours pass, like leaves floating down a slow river. Nothing terrible happened in Elliot's life, but nothing magical happened either. And the longer that went on, the more he felt like his life was made of plain paper. But every night, every single night, when Elliot fell asleep, he became someone else. The dream kingdom. Sound, faint wind chimes, distant harp-like tones. In his dreams, Elliot stood on a balcony made of pale stone that glowed like moonlight. Below him stretched a city built of marble and gold. Rivers wound through it like ribbons. Gardens bloomed in impossible colors. Lanterns floated through the air, drifting gently like fireflies that never died. And when he looked down at himself, he wore robes of deep blue velvet, trimmed in silver thread. A crown sat on his head, light as a feather, yet heavy with meaning. A voice would always greet him the same way. "Royal advisor, calm, respectful. My king, the morning council awaits." Elliot would turn. There was always a grand hall behind him. Pillars taller than trees, stained glass windows telling stories of heroes and miracles. And when he walked through the palace, everyone bowed, not out of fear, out of love, out of honor. He was King Elian of Lumiris, the bright kingdom. And in that world, he mattered. He had purpose, he had power, he had beauty. At the council table, leaders asked for his wisdom. In the gardens, children laughed and ran beside him. At night, music filled the halls, and the air smelled like warm spices and roses. In Lumiris, Elliot wasn't ordinary, he was extraordinary. And every morning, when the sun rose in that dream world, he felt something he never felt at his desk in real life. He felt alive. The morning problem. But the alarm always came, and it always sounded wrong, like a rude knock at the door of a sacred place. Elliot would wake up blinking at the ceiling of his apartment. The crown was gone, the palace was gone, the city of gold was gone. All that remained was beige carpet, the hum of the refrigerator, and the weight in his chest. He would sit on the edge of the bed staring at his hands. They didn't look like a king's hands. They looked like the hands of a man who typed for a living. Elliot, quiet, tired. Why would I want to get up? At first it was small. He'd hit snooze once, then twice. Then he'd start calling in sick on Mondays, then on Tuesdays. Then he'd lie to himself and say he just needed rest. But the truth was, waking up felt like stepping out of color and into gray, and the gray began to swallow him. The drift weeks passed, then months. Elliot still went to work most days, but his eyes looked distant. His coworkers noticed. Coworker, casual. "You all right, man? You've been kind of out of it." Elliot would force a smile. "Elliot, yeah, just tired." But tired wasn't the word. It was more like he was homesick for a place he wasn't sure existed. And every day he sat at his desk, he found himself thinking of the palace, of the gardens, of the way people looked at him with hope. In Lumiris, his decisions shaped the future. In the office, his decisions shaped a spreadsheet. He started counting down the hours until he could sleep again. He started going to bed earlier and earlier. 9 o'clock, 8:30, 8, until one night. He crawled into bed while the sun was still up, and he whispered into his pillow, "Elliot," barely audible, "I don't want this life." And the scary thing was, he meant it. A crack in the dream. That night, Elliot returned to Lumiris. Sound, soft wind, distant choir. He walked through the palace halls, expecting the usual warmth. But something felt different. The air was colder. The lanterns flickered. The marble floors had faint cracks running through them like spiderwebs. His advisor approached him, but his face looked worried. "Royal advisor, My king, something is happening. Elliot frowned. Elliot, as King Elian. What do you mean? The advisor gestured toward the balcony. Elliot stepped outside. The city was still beautiful, but the colors were dimmer. The sky was a little too pale, and far off, beyond the rivers and towers, there was a fog creeping in, dark and slow, like a shadow trying to swallow the edges of the world. Royal advisor, the kingdom weakens when you do. Elliot turned sharply. Elliot, that doesn't make sense. The advisor's eyes softened. Royal advisor, my king, you are not meant to live here alone. Elliot felt his chest tighten. Elliot, this is the only place I feel like myself. The advisor took a step closer, voice gentle but firm. Royal advisor, no, my king, this is the place you escaped to. Elliot's throat went dry. Elliot, then what am I supposed to do? The advisor looked past Elliot toward the fog. Royal advisor, you must remember, you are king in both worlds. The dream turns. The next morning, Elliot woke up late again, but something about the dream stayed with him. You are king in both worlds. He repeated it under his breath while brushing his teeth. It sounded ridiculous. He wasn't a king. He didn't even feel like an adult most days. He felt like a tired man pretending to function. He went to work anyway, but for the first time in months, he looked around. He really looked. The fluorescent lights, the gray cubicles, the tired faces, and he realized he wasn't the only one. Everyone here looked like they were just surviving. And for a strange moment, he felt something unfamiliar. Not sadness, not numbness, something else. A tiny spark. A question. Elliot, thoughtful. What if I could bring something from the dream into this world? A small act of kingship. That afternoon, a coworker named Mara sat across from him. She was usually cheerful, but today her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Elliot hesitated. He normally stayed quiet, he normally stayed safe, but something in him, something royal, rose up. Not pride, not ego, responsibility. He leaned forward. Elliot, soft. Hey, you okay? Mara blinked like she didn't expect anyone to ask. Mara, yeah, just stuff. Elliot nodded slowly. Elliot, if you want, I can listen. Mara stared at him for a second, then her shoulders dropped. Mara, quiet. My mom's sick, and I feel like I'm failing at everything. I'm tired, Elliot. Elliot didn't know what to say, so he didn't try to fix it. He didn't give a speech. He just stayed. He listened. And for the first time in a long time, Elliot felt present. After work, Mara thanked him. Mara, that actually helped, more than you know. Elliot watched her walk away, and the spark in his chest grew. The second night. That night, Elliot returned to Lumeris. But the fog was closer now. It pressed against the edges of the city like a tide. The advisor met him immediately. Royal advisor, my king, the darkness feeds on your despair. Elliot clenched his jaw. Elliot, I'm trying. The advisor nodded. Royal advisor, then keep trying, not here, there. Elliot looked toward the city. He could hear distant voices now, fearful whispers. The kingdom was waiting for him to save it, but not with a sword, with a choice. Elliot turned back. Elliot, what happens if I stop coming? The advisor's expression softened, almost sad. Royal advisor, then this world becomes only a story. Elliot's heart ached. He didn't want it to disappear, but he also didn't want to disappear from his real life. The advisor placed a hand over his heart. Royal advisor, you are not meant to live in dreams. You are meant to be changed by them. The hardest morning. The next morning, Elliot woke up and didn't move. He stared at the ceiling. His body felt heavy. His mind whispered the old lie. Stay here, sleep again, go back. He reached for his phone. His thumb hovered over the alarm. He could call in sick. No one would stop him. No one would know. But then, he remembered Mara's face. How her shoulders relaxed when he listened. How for a moment, he felt useful, not powerful, useful. And something inside him whispered back, get up anyway. Elliot sat up. His chest hurt, his eyes burned, but he stood. And he whispered the words like a vow. Elliot, I'm going to live, building a kingdom in real life. Elliot started small. He began taking walks during lunch. He started reading at night instead of immediately sleeping. He started writing down what he loved about Lumerus, not the gold, not the palace, but the meaning, the purpose, the way his presence made others feel safe. Then he began bringing those things into his real world. He complimented a coworker who looked invisible. He held doors. He smiled first. He checked in, and slowly, something changed. Not the office, not the job, him. He was waking up with less dread, still tired, still ordinary, but no longer empty. The dream's final test. One night, Elliot returned to Lumerus and found the palace in chaos. The fog had poured into the city streets. Lanterns flickered out. The air felt heavy. The advisor ran to him. "Royal advisor, my king, the darkness has reached the gates." Elliot ran to the balcony. The fog rose like a living thing, and then a voice came from within it, deep and cold, darkness, echoing, "You belong here. You are nothing there. Stay asleep." Elliot trembled. The fog crept closer, and for a moment he wanted to surrender because it would be easier, so much easier, to stop trying. But then Elliot remembered something. In his real life, he had been tired, but he had still shown up. He had still listened. He had still lived. He stepped forward and spoke with a steady voice. "Elliot, I am not yours." The darkness hissed. "Darkness, then prove it." Elliot lifted his crown from his head and held it out. "Elliot, this kingdom was never meant to replace my life." The advisor's eyes widened. "Royal advisor, my king." Elliot smiled sadly. "Elliot, it saved me when I needed it. But now, I'm choosing to save myself." He placed the crown on the balcony railing, and the moment he let go, the palace light surged. The fog recoiled like it had been burned. The city shimmered, not dying, not disappearing, transforming. The marble softened into starlight. The towers turned into glowing dust. The whole world of Lumerus lifted like a lantern into the sky, and the advisor's voice came one last time. "Royal advisor, soft, proud. Go, Elliot, be king where it matters most." The happiest morning. Elliot woke up with tears on his face, but he wasn't devastated. He wasn't broken. He felt free. The dream wasn't gone, not really. It lived in him now. He got dressed, he made coffee, he went to work. But this time he didn't feel like a prisoner. He felt like someone building something. After work, he didn't go straight to bed. He stopped at a small community center he'd passed 100 times. There was a sign outside. "Volunteers needed. After-school program." Elliot stared at it. His heart pounded. Then he walked inside. A woman at the desk looked up. "Woman, can I help you?" Elliot swallowed. "Elliot, yeah, I think I want to volunteer." The woman smiled. "Woman, we'd love that." And just like that, Elliot stepped into a new life. Not lavish, not golden, but real and meaningful and alive. Closing, soft music returns, warm and hopeful. Elliot still dreams sometimes. Not always of palaces, not always of crowns, but sometimes, in the quiet space between sleep and waking, he would see lanterns floating in a dark sky, and he would feel a familiar peace, a reminder that the best dreams aren't the ones you escape into. They're the ones that teach you how to return and live. Narrator, softly. Because even in a small life, you can build a kingdom. Not with gold, but with love, with courage, with presence, and with the simple choice to wake up. Music fades out slowly. The end.